So hi everyone. Today we'll be discussing about this poem called as RUBAIYAT. The term RUBAIYAT, we'll come to know about the meaning of the term. And the poem is written by Omar Khayyam. Okay. Now I have a picture of Omar Khayyam. He lived in the year 1048 to 1131. Now Omar Khayyam was known to be a poet as well as a philosopher and also a mathematician. Now, in the area of mathematics, he had written a treatise called as the Treatise on Demonstration of Problems of Algebra. Okay, so that's basically about Omar Khayyam. And Omar Khayyam, as we are seeing, lived during the year 1048 to 1131. In this year, during the life of Omar Khayyam, a particular political event happened in Iran. No, he was a man who lived in a place called as Naishapur. Now, Naishapur is a place in northeastern Iran. Being an Iranian poet, he had gone through a lot. During his lifetime, there was a political scenario where a particular group of Turks, people from Turkey, called as the settled Turks, they invaded this place, and especially Naishapur. And it was in this conflict or in this period of internal conflict that Omar Khayyam had lived. So basic questions of he kind of philosophized the concept of life, the meaning of life, whether what was there a point of living and things like that. Okay. Now Khayyam usually wrote his poems in the set of quatrains. Now quatrains are simply 4-lined poems. The poetry or his poems will be divided into four lines. Okay. Now his poems, even though it was an Iranian poem, it kind of got the attention of the Westerners in the year 1895. In the year 1895, the poet called as Edward Fitzgerald, he translated the whole RUBAIYAT, and this poem was later known as the RUBAIYAT of Omar Khayyam or the quatrains of Omar Khayyam. Okay, and at the introduction of this RUBAIYAT, this part, now we won't be learning the whole of RUBAIYAT, we'll be learning lines, we'll be having a 16-lined poem and from the quatrains 25 to 28. So 25, 26, 27, 28, 4 lines each. And so in total we'll be learning 16 lines. And at the introduction part, at the beginning of Edward Fitzgerald's translation, he mentions Omar Khayyam's poem as having an Epicurean philosophy. Now, what is an Epicurean philosophy? It is basically related to the concept of carpe diem. What is carpe diem and what is Epicurean philosophy? Loosely translated, it can be called as seizing the day or living this moment. We only have, we do not need to bother about the future. It is this moment that matters. So that is basically the philosophy of carpe diem. Now, Epicurean philosophy, it's basically a pleasure-seeking philosophy. Now, man is having only one life. Man is having only one single life. So why not live it to the best? So that is the basic idea of an Epicurean philosophy. Now we'll move to the poem. Okay. Now, before going directly into the poem, I'll just brief you about the basic background of this poem. Okay. In quatrains 25 to 28, what happens is the poet, he speaks about various saints and sages to whom he had often visited, asking them about the meaning of life, asking about the necessity of life, or all those things about life, his questions on life. But what happened here is, all these saints who had talked about this life and the afterlife is no longer there. They are already gone. They are turned into dust. They have turned into dust. So there is no point in talking about them. And the poet, he kind of calls upon to his readers to adapt his philosophy of life, his point of view on life, that we only have a single life. We do not know what is going to happen after this death happens. And so live our life to the fullest. So that's basically the whole idea that Omar Khayyam is trying to give us in these quatrains. Okay, now we'll see these quatrain by quatrain. The first quatrain number 25. Why all the saints and sages who discussed of the two worlds so learnedly are thrust like foolish prophets forth. Their words to scorn are scattered and their mouths are stopped with dust. But the beginning itself, the poet is talking about the various saints and sages. with whom he had discussed about the two worlds. The two worlds here means the life in this world and the life hereafter, or this life and the afterlife. Now, many sages, many saints, and all those philosophers had thought about, had kind of started thinking more on the afterlife, failing to live this life. So where are all those saints now? They are no longer here. They are turned into dust, and their words are thrust, and their words are left to scorn. People consider them as foolish. Why? Because they are no longer there. They have not yet given proof to the answers. Why? They are already dead. Okay. Like foolish prophets, for their words to scorn are scattered and their mouths are stopped with dust. So they are no longer here. Into the next quatrain. In this quatrain, Omar Khayyam is asking us to follow his own path, to follow his own Epicurean philosophy, or to follow his own the theory of carpe diem. Okay. Oh, come with old Khayyam, he's referring to himself, and leave the wise to talk. Let the wise talk. Let them kind of speak. Let them use their mouths to talk. But in application, in that level of practicality, come with me, follow my philosophy. One thing is certain, that life flies. He is talking about a kind of certainty in life. Okay, so one thing is certain, that life flies. Life will move on. It's something which is obvious. A thing that is born will come to an end. So that was my second point. Anyway, we'll get to that. One thing is certain, that life flies. One thing is certain, and the rest is lies. So what is that certainty? What is the one thing that Omar Khayyam is sure about in this life? Now, let us take our life itself. Every nook and corner, every second and minute presents us with unlimited amount or unlimited number of possibilities. Anything can happen at any moment. At this moment, maybe this whole roof can come down and kill me and end the video. It's a possibility. Or at this moment, maybe the whole world can end right now. Maybe a huge comet can come and hit the world. Or at this moment, everything can go as normal. Or at this particular moment, I can suddenly have a heart attack and fall off and die. And the person who is taking this video won't even know because he's outside. Okay. So our life is a life filled with uncertainties, but there is one thing that is sure about life. And what is that thing? He uses a metaphor to explain this concept. The flower that once has blown forever dies. The flower that has once blown forever dies. He is kind of comparing human life with a flower. Just as a flower starts to bud, a human life is born. Just as it starts to bloom, a human life blooms. As in the sense, we reach our prime, we start to enjoy life. And just as no matter how beautiful the flower is, there is a day where it is going to wither away and die. There is a day where it is going to wither away and die. That is what he means from these lines. The flower that once had blown forever dies. In life, there is only one thing that is certain, and that is death. We are born, we live, and we die. So that concept of death is the one thing that is sure. So Khayyam is asking, you know that you are going to die. Man, once you are born, you will die. Okay, so why worry about that? Why worry about what is going to happen to you after death? We only have one. So there is this concept called as YOLO. You only live once. YOLO. I hope you have heard about this. So YOLO, that's the base. That's to be short, to be precise. The concept of YOLO is what he is giving through his poem, or especially these 4 quatrains. Okay. So one thing is certain in life. One thing is certain in life, and that is death. Moving to the next quatrain, 27. Now, Khayyam gives us a bit of his own history. Myself, when I was young, did eagerly frequent doctor and saint. When I was young, I used to visit all these doctors and saints, and there is this idea of, a doctor is someone who helps us biologically and tends to our physical need, and saints are usually associated with a spiritual level. So in the sense Omar Khayyam, he wanted to have the answers of both a spiritual end as well as a physical end. He wanted to know what is going to happen after death. And that is why when he was young, he usually frequently visited the doctors and saints and heard great argument about it and about. But evermore came out by the same door as I went. He went in, he had a conversation with these doctors and sages and all, and then he came back through the same door. So coming back from the same door, we don't take this in a literal sense. It's more of a figurative method that is being used here. He went, he asked his questions, he had discussions with these saints and doctors. He wanted to know what happened to us after life, after our death. He wanted to know what was the meaning of life, what was the point of living. And he came back through the same door. Means what? He was not at all enlightened. He was not at all satisfied. So that is why he mentions it like here, came out by the same door as I went. Coming to the last quatrain that we'll be learning today. Now in this quatrain, look at these lines. I came like water and like wind I go. Now this is one of the best ways in which you can describe your own life. So this phrase is being used as many quotes and in many situations. Okay, in this last quatrain, it's a continuation of what he had about his discussions with these doctors and saints. With them, the seeds of wisdom did I sow. With the ideas, with the philosophy that I had collected from the doctors, from the sages or saints, I sowed the seeds of wisdom inside me. So he is kind of metaphorizing his own ideals, the wisdom that he received from the saints, from the sages and all. He planted them as little ideas in his mind and he let them grow. And with my own hand labored it to grow. He gave his own interpretations to the ideas, to all those philosophical thoughts about life and all. So he started to sow the seed of wisdom and with his own hand he nurtured it and it started to grow. And this was all the harvest that I reaped. And this was all the harvest. The harvest, the fruit of his thought, the fruit of years of his idea of philosophizing life, everything, and all these things. And he came to a conclusion. This is all he could talk about life. This is all the only idea that he received from life. And now, this is not a simple thing, okay? Now, these lines, it might seem a bit poetic, but it has a really deep meaning. I came like water and like wind I go. I came like water and like wind I go. Now, in this case, he is giving a beautiful comparison of our life with that of wind and like water. I came like water. Let's analyze this line phrase by phrase. I came like water. I came like water. Now, water is considered to be the source of all life. He is comparing our life with the elements of wind and water. I came like water. Like a water that starts off from a beautiful spring. Our lives are also born. We are born like spring water. And like water, we start to flow. We start to channel our lives. But how are we going to go? How are we going to die? Or what is going to happen to us after our life? It is a mystery. Now, to kind of give more emphasis onto this mystery, he uses the example of the wind. The wind. Now we know the wind, the whole concept of wind. Now wind is something which we cannot see. Wind is something which is always there. Now we cannot see the wind, but we feel its presence. Now, if someone asks you, from where does this wind come or to where does this wind go? We do not have any answer. The point of origin and the destination of the wind is never known. So that is why he compares our life, he compares the transience of our life to that of water and in this case, wind. Just as a wind is born, just as a wind goes to an unknown place, so is it going to be with our lives. We do not know what is going to happen to us after death. Okay, so that is basically the whole idea of the poem RUBAIYAT. I mean, especially these quatrains what range 25 to 28. It's basically more about the concept of life, the concept of how beautiful life is, and also we only have one life. We only have one life. So what is the point if we spend most of our lives kind of having all these tensions, having all those unnecessary complex thoughts about how our next life is going to be, how our life is going to be, how are we supposed to lead our lives right now? No, that is not the point. One certainty in life is there. One certainty, one simple certainty is there, and that is death. Now, death is not viewed as something negative here. It is viewed as a certainty. Since we die, now we are sure that we are going to die. Okay, so this whole idea of life being uncertain and the only thing certain, that is death, should kind of instigate a thought of living, a thought of being vibrant in our lives. To be short, YOLO. So by this, I end today's session. YOLO. You only live once, so live it to the best. Thank you. We'll wind up our session. If you have any doubts, feel free to watch this video again and again and again. Okay, so thank you. Take care. Have a nice day.